Hola, mi gente. How are you? It's Michaela Valletta, also known as the Renaissance Amazon. And I am live on my IG. I will save it and repost it to my YouTube, so make sure you follow me in both places. In case you're unfamiliar with me, I am a huge science nerd. I have a background, a bachelor's of science in exercise and sports science with a minor in nutrition, concentration and strength and conditioning. But before I got into that major, I was a biotechnology major. Okay, when I first went to college, I wanted to become a scientist and research cures for genetic diseases. Okay, so that's cancers, stuff like that. And I spent 2 years as a biotechnology major. I was really into microbiomes and viruses and bacteria, and I really got an interest in microbiomes starting in 10th grade biology in New York City public schools, where I learned about why you shouldn't use hand sanitizers and antibiotics. And that has always stuck with me since then, okay? And how it's contributing to super strains of bacteria. So I've been into microbes and viruses and microbiomes since then, right? And so after that, I did about a year and a half in a 3-year master's program in applied physiology and nutrition. And then last year, I graduated from the University of Maryland School of Pharmacy with a master's in medical cannabis science and therapeutics, okay? So I'm telling you this background so you can understand that I have an extensive science background, right? And I have another page, The Body Scientist, where I get into a lot of the science stuff. And I definitely say check that page out. And I'm going to get into a little bit of it on this page. Usually I don't get into it that much on this page, but I wanted to give you that background. And I've committed my life to studying all the ways to take the body to its highest level, right? I also grew up around, I had a mother who's a union organizer, a dad who was heavily involved in the civil rights movement, and also a journalist who wrote his opinions in the media. And so that's basically, I did not grow up around people who just do whatever for money, right? Like a pharmaceutical salesperson, right? I don't respect people who do that work, because when they hire people who are pharmaceutical salespeople, they don't hire people who have a background in science at all. They hire anybody to do that. They really want you to be charming and attractive. And then they have you going and meeting with doctors and, speaking to doctors about these medications, and you yourself, that pharmaceutical salesperson, does not have the ability to read and analyze these studies and really tell this doctor if this is safe or not. They're just reciting what was told to them, and that's dangerous. I don't respect that, because dying from pharmaceutical drugs is the number one cause of death, okay? Doctors' mistakes and errors, a lot of people die because of that, okay? So, anyhow, going back onto topic. So I'm just going to say I did not vote for Donald Trump in either election. However, I'm greatly irritated by both sides. And, there's certain things with the Democrats that I completely do not agree with, okay? And there's certain things with the Republicans that I completely do not agree with. And both of those things are a big deal on both sides, okay? That I really, there's things on both sides that I feel like I think that RFK Jr., I absolutely support everything he's doing. And I've done videos on that on my other page, The Body Scientist 81, and I'm going to be doing more videos on that. But the question of this video is, was Trump and RFK Jr. a necessary reset? Now, like I said, I didn't vote for him, but I don't disagree with everything that Trump is doing. I think that when it comes to the trans situation, okay, completely out of hand. Most people have no idea, okay? Most people have no idea. They think it's just, men going in the women's bathroom, which is still bad, okay? That's bad to be having grown-ass men going into the women's bathroom. But little girls and even grown women, that's just horrible. And when women complain about it, we're being told that we're discriminating, right? So, or having boys play girls in sports and beating them, taking scholarships, injuring them. And then everybody just playing along with this whole thing that the pronouns. I never participated in that. If somebody ever asked me my pronouns, I'm not answering that. I'm not participating. Hey, what is it? Desoljadon? Welcome. What is that saying? So just the whole delusional thing, the whole trans thing is very delusional, and it's a problem. Okay, I had a trans woman tell me, "Oh, that I don't get to gatekeep womanhood." Like, dude, what? You're a whole man. What are you talking about? You know what I'm saying? A man can't tell. You're not even in a conversation about womanhood. And they have us out here saying chest milk. You're not allowed to say breast milk anymore. You have to say people who give birth. You're not allowed to say women give birth. That's ridiculous. I'm never participating in that. And that's what was happening in liberal states. You also have a lot of young teenage girls. A lot of people don't. I will put links below on my YouTube. A lot of teenage girls who start transitioning, they're getting double mastectomies as teenagers. These kids are taking puberty blockers, which messes up their sexual function. So when they grow older, they can never have an orgasm, and they can't reproduce. Okay? So the trans thing and the gay thing is not the same thing at all. I've done videos talking about it. It's not the same thing. Gay people are gay. They're proud of it. Whatever. They're not saying they're another gender. And you could be gay and still have kids and have orgasms and everything else. When you start cutting off your genitalia, cutting off parts of your body, you have a mental illness, okay? Like, you just do. When you're cutting off parts of yourself, like, I feel like a cat on the inside, okay? I always say if I wasn't human, I'd be a cat. But if I started cutting off parts of my body and getting surgeries to look like a cat, first of all, cats will never accept me as a cat. They will always know I'm not a cat. Okay, that's number one. Number two, doing all that would not make me a cat. Just like if I wanted to be a boy, I could get all the surgeries in the world, and I'm still not a dude. I don't have a man's brain. Men's brains are wired a certain way. It's not just, let me start taking the male hormone. No, and now you're a lifelong customer of the pharmaceutical industry. So, of course, they want to push the trans thing because they have lifelong customers. Once you're trans, you're taking them hormones and all them pills forever. I'm totally not with that. That trans stuff needs to stop. So, people can cross-dress all they want. We always had people like, what is his name? What was his name? RuPaul. RuPaul was fine, but RuPaul wasn't saying he was a woman. He was cross-dressing. Cross-dress all you want. But he wasn't saying he was a woman. He wasn't saying call me she. He wasn't saying I want to be in female beauty pageants and no, okay? So, that needs to stop, okay? People coming in this country by the thousands every day, which is what we saw, under the Democrats, like literally watching people on camera every day just flood into the country from everywhere, not cool. Okay, the fentanyl crisis in this country is coming from China and Mexico. You know what I'm saying? So that needed to be cut off. Now, how Trump is dealing with it, is debatable, but at the same time, I feel like you won't have those problems if you're not here illegally. There are people who I know, there are Americans I know who moved to Costa Rica or moved to other countries, and they knew that, they weren't legal citizens. They had to follow a certain process. Maybe they had to leave every 4 months and come back in for some visa thing or whatever. But if they knew that they had overstayed and they actually had been in the country illegally for 5 years and immigration came to get them, they're not going to try to go to war with them. You know what I'm saying? So, and the way he's dealing with it is putting fear in people. And people need to be afraid of something. I'm not saying that Alcatraz, any of that is right, but I'm saying that all these other countries, I'm somebody who travels a lot, right? And I wouldn't dare act up in Colombia or Jamaica. I wouldn't go to Nigeria or Russia and act up because American prisons and American systems a lot of times are a lot better than other countries. A lot of times they're a lot less corrupt. We think we have corruption. Corruption in those other countries is really bad. And then when you're not from there too, so a lot of us wouldn't play those games in other countries, but people play those games in America because America has always been more lenient, more civil, more humane. And so Trump going about it in this inhumane way is really making it clear to people, like, don't come over here. Because before, you had people who were coming in the country illegally, oh, my kids, oh, it's wrong, they took my, they took the parents and their kids. That happens, period. In America, if you commit a crime and the cops come for you, they're taking you. And if your kids will be there, you know what I'm saying? Like they're separating you from your kids, you know? And so as a parent, if you know you're coming to this foreign country and this could happen to your children, don't bring them here and put them in that situation. I understand that people have a sob story. People have sob stories in America too. People live in war zones in America too. But if they went and tried to get on a boat and go to some foreign land, they know, like, anything can happen to you. And they might not fuck with you like that. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're trying to illegally bum rush somebody's country. That's all I'm saying. So, and I'm just saying, I feel like as a world traveler, if I was in somebody else's country, if Americans were in another country, illegally using resources, doing all that, and they were telling us to leave and we were fighting with them, or even if we weren't fighting with them, I do not believe the people in those countries would be fighting for Americans and be saying the way that people in this country are fighting for illegal immigrants. I do not, because when people say Trump is anti-immigrant, I don't think he's anti-immigrant. I think he's anti-illegal immigrant. Now, yes, he is targeting those of color more than the white ones, it seems. And that's something that, as a black American, we always knew that this country was racist in that way. And we tried to tell other people of color that, not just people of African descent or Caribbean, but also Indian. We tried to everybody. Everybody told us we were exaggerating. Everybody told us that we were complaining too much and we were exaggerating. So now they can see. So the fact that Trump's policies are racist, okay. Now you guys get to see. Like, what did I say? Necessary reset. You said we were exaggerating, huh? You said that black people were lazy, right? You wanted to suck up to the white man so bad because I saw the Caribbeans, a lot of Africans, the Indians. Most immigrants that have come to America have not been the allies of black Americans. I didn't say all, okay? I choose my words very carefully and I say exactly what I mean. So nobody ever has to put words in my mouth because I say exactly what I mean. Most immigrant groups that have come to America have not been the allies of black Americans. They've been our ops. They've talked about us. They've called us lazy. They said we exaggerate, sucking up to the white man, getting in the way. So now that this is happening, I mean, even, you know, like I said, there's a lot of people keep talking about the Cubans. Those Cubans in Miami are racist. So I love seeing them get deported. But a lot of Haitians also were supporting Trump and It's just like whatever. But regardless, you guys said we know what we were talking about. So necessary reset. The H1, yeah, exactly. The Soldier Don said, we see how they convoluted being anti-illegal immigrant is just being anti-immigrant. Exactly. Exactly. Saying that we don't want people just walking up in this country, taking up mad space, using up resources, making our rent go higher, dropping our wages, does not mean we're anti-immigrant. And that's my issue with the Democrats. And I remember even with the DNC, and I made a video during the DNC and I spoke about this, was that there was too much of a focus on immigrants. The whole DNC was about immigrants. You would think everybody in America is an immigrant. That's disrespectful. Everybody in America is not an immigrant. And then I hear people who are immigrants telling black Americans that we're immigrants too. And that's just, that kind of disrespect goes too far. And when people do that, we would never do that to somebody else. Black Americans would never move to another country and start telling the people that have been there for hundreds of years, for thousands of years, that they're immigrants. And that like we're in the same playing field. You just got here. We've been here. We've been here for as far back as we can trace. People aren't disrespectful like that with people in other lands. You know what I'm saying? So I'm like, go tell that. You know who you need to go tell that to? Go tell that to the black people who live in Europe, okay? They're immigrants. Go tell that to them, all right? So anyhow, so you have that, I feel like, as a part of a necessary reset. Then a lot of the things, we have a lot of our history being trying to rewrite and erase. And I feel like a lot of black Americans got comfortable. I think a lot of black Americans think that everybody knew our history. I think that a lot of black Americans felt like shit was good now and would complain about nothing has changed and the civil rights generation failed us. I can't tell you how many times I've heard that. So they can see that things can be taken. If you slip up, you get too comfortable. The battle was never done. So you thought that it was, you got lazy, and look at how things are getting taken from underneath your feet. And that's going to, in order to get it back, it's going to make people have to get to work. People are going to have to get to work because Trump is causing a lot of destruction. Okay? In that way. So that's another thing of a necessary reset. Now, right here, I just want to say I'm going to do a video on my other page, The Body Scientist 81. But, and I did videos during COVID, like 2020, 2021, talking about vaccines. Okay, you should definitely check out those videos. A lot of people don't want to listen to the nerdy videos, but it's really important because what I say, when it comes to your health, what you don't know can hurt you. Okay, and a lot of things that people think, and I talk a lot about my background on the other page, so you can even understand where I'm coming from. Not just, I told you my degrees, my academic background, but my first graduate program was the only nutrition program in the country that did not take money from the commercial food industry. And so that program made me aware. Hold on a minute. Did I bring that book over here? Oh, I wanted to bring that book over here. Okay, hold on a second. Wait, I might have to get up a second. I didn't want to, but hold up. Let me get it. Okay. This was a book that I was made to, you know, people really need to read more, okay? Like actually get books and read more. But I was made to read this book during my first graduate program. And this is a book called Food Politics, okay, by Marion Nestle. This book changed my life, okay? Food Politics. How the food industry influences nutrition and health, okay? Now, this book was written by a professor at NYU who, I'm just going to read you who she is. Marion Nestle is Paulette Goddard Professor of Nutrition, Food Studies, and Public Health, and Professor of Sociology at NYU. Author of Nutrition in Clinical Practice, she has served as a nutrition policy advisor to the Department of Health and Human Services, as a member of Nutrition and Science Advisory Committees to the U.S. Department of Agriculture and the Food and Drug Administration. She is the author of Safe Food, Bacteria, Biotechnology, and Bioterrorism. Okay? And it's funny about the biotechnology. Remember I told you my first major was biotechnology and talking about bioterrorism and bacteria. I told you I was really into that as well. And this woman has won all these awards too, okay? This book, she clearly shows you how the food companies control politicians. The food companies and the drug companies are the same people, okay? The food companies and the drug companies are the same people. Nobody gives more money to the food companies. Nobody gives more money to politicians than the food companies, okay? They're number one. And then the pharmaceutical companies are shortly after, but again, they're the same people. And what do we have? The FDA. People think that the FDA does research. They do not. That's not what they do. If you want, and I have, again, videos on my other page, The Body Scientist 81, where I speak about this in depth. And so I'm going to post a series of links on my YouTube. I'm on Instagram right now. I'm going to repost it on YouTube. On YouTube, I will post a series of links to my videos where I talk about this stuff more in depth, right? But the food companies fund, and the drug companies fund politicians more than anybody, and also the media. When you watch the news, what do you see? Commercials for food and drugs. Food and drugs. So nobody can go on commercial media and talk against the food companies or the drug companies. And science is very corrupted. Okay, hold on a minute. Actually, hold on a minute. There's one more book I want to grab. Hold on. One more. I actually did a video about this on my page, The Body Scientist 81, in 2021. This video called Science for Sale. I have a video called Science for Sale that's on my other page, The Body Scientist 81. This book, Science for Sale. How the U.S. government uses powerful corporations and leading universities to support government policies, silence top scientists, jeopardize our health, and protect corporate profits, okay? And this is written by David L. Lewis, a PhD. A foreword by one PhD, afterward by another PhD. Scientist, okay? And this is discover how and why the government is corrupting scientific research. Okay? And then I'm just going to read you just a little thing about him. It says, David L. Lewis, PhD, put dentistry on a heat sterilization standard worldwide in 1992 when his research at the University of Georgia showed that germicides recommended by the CDC and the FDA could not prevent common dental devices from causing sporadic cases of HIV infection. Do you hear this? Dental devices causing sporadic HIV infections? As a veteran microbiologist in the EPA's Office of Research and Development, his medical and environmental research and commentaries on the politics of science have been covered in news articles and documentaries by every major media outlet, from Reader's Digest to National Geographic. Okay, so this is another book, Science for Sale. Okay, science is very corrupted, and I learned that in my first graduate program, which is what made me not want to be a scientist. First, I got deterred from being a scientist in biotechnology because my organic chemistry professor told me in undergrad that I would make $30,000 a year doing research in a lab locked away from people. And I said, this is way too difficult for me to get a PhD in this and then make $30,000 a year and be bored. No. So then I switched majors to exercise and sports science with a concentration in strength and conditioning and a minor in sports nutrition. And it's still very much science, but it's more applied. So I've taken a lot of chemistry, biochemistry, microbiology. I've taken biochemistry so many different ways. And then in the program I graduated from last year, medical cannabis science and therapeutics, also a lot of chemistry and pharmacology because my professors were pharmacists, okay? So I'm telling you my background because this is what I've been doing, okay? When it comes to microbiology, infectious organisms, just the body period and how it works. You know, when you're dealing with nutritional biochemistry, understanding how drugs and foods are approved, okay? And also in my first graduate program, I learned a lot about how, foods and stuff are approved, and the corruption with that with the FDA. When it comes to supplements and drugs, it is, and I have YouTube videos on my other page of Body Scientist 81. People think that everything that's FDA approved is safe and real and all this other stuff. Like, no, okay? Absolutely not. It's so much more corrupt than you think. Okay, so these books that I'm telling you about is going to show that. Because a lot of people are out here talking, reposting stuff that's coming from the media or some, and it's like the media is terrible when it comes to reporting anything about science and health. Awful. And the media journalists, usually not science people, and they're paid for it. Because who runs the media? Food companies and drug companies, okay? You need to actually go read studies. People don't do that. And so if you don't have a scientific background, you may not go read studies, but if you read these books that I'm telling you about, they'll quote the studies. They'll break them down. They'll explain, and they'll show you, okay? So this is another book. This is called Vaccine Epidemic, okay? I have this posted on my Instagram page too, The Body Scientist, okay? Vaccine Epidemic, How Corporate Greed, Biased Science, and Coercive Government, let me look. How corporate greed, biased science, and coercive government threaten our human rights, our health, and our children, okay? This is edited by an attorney, a research scholar, NYU School of Law, okay? Mary Holland, JD, with another Rosenberg, JD, edited by, so now, look at how thick this book is. People think during COVID, people were talking about the COVID vaccine, and they thought all the other vaccines were safe and effective. They're not. None of the vaccines have been tested properly, okay? All of them poison people. None of them have eradicated disease. And I've known that for a long time because there's many studies and analyzations of studies that show that. But again, most people don't do that research. And in science, just like if you're in a debate team, you need to research the opinions of your opponents. And a lot of people who are just so pro-vaccine and they don't have a science background, they don't go listen to the people who are highly qualified, who are also scientists over doctors a lot of times, because doctors are not scientists. Most of them don't even read research. there are clinicians who are told to do something a certain way or you lose your license. Okay? This is a book that was written by this Nigerian medical doctor that I met on Clubhouse during COVID. Okay, COVID-19 Remedies, a Frontline Doctor's View. And this doctor, he was completely against the COVID vaccines. And he felt like Fauci should be arrested, okay? Now, and I'm actually going to interview him. Dr. Caxton O'Perry is a board-certified internist with over 31 years of clinical experience and a frontline COVID-19 physician, recognized by Texas Governor Greg Abbott for his work on COVID-19, the Louisiana Senate for his work on divorce. Okay, yeah, he also does divorce prevention and stuff. I'm not going to get into that. But anyhow, this was a small book, but a good book. And so when people were talking about ivermectin and all this stuff, like he goes into a lot of that in here. Then you have this book, Jabbed, okay? Jabbed. How the vaccine industry, medical establishment, and government stick it to you and your family, okay? And this book, the other book I showed you, no, not this one, Vaccine Epidemic. This is also a really thick book, okay? But so is this one, and they don't have the same stuff in it. And when I've looked at them, it's like equally shocking, and there's so much stuff, okay? I have another one on the HPV vaccine that has caused so many issues. I had no idea kids were taking, if you take all the vaccines you're supposed to take, you'll be taking 100 and something by the time you graduate. People in my generation didn't take that much. The people before me didn't take that much. And they're straight toxic. And I was watching, and I'm going to talk about this on my other page, the Body Scientist 81, but I was watching, see, hold on a minute, let me look at their names. It was Tony Rogers, Dr. Tony Rogers, who's a PhD, Dr. Jake Scott, who's an MD, and Aaron Sen, who's the scientist, and they were talking about the corruption. Well, the medical doctor, he was saying a bunch of nothing, trying to kind of acting clueless and really saying nothing, but the scientists were clearly showing the corruption in scientific research. Especially as it pertains to vaccines and vaccine safety, and not just around COVID-19, but all of them, okay? Showing how the research around all of them has been corrupted, how research that shows that vaccines do damage are not published. There's a lot of politics and science, which is what made me not want to become a scientist. I didn't want to deal with that. It's like, you think, oh, I just want to help people when you're young. You don't realize what it's really about. And somebody has to fund that research. And who's funding it? The food companies, the drug companies, and they want you to find the findings they want. Now, a lot of times, nobody listens to scientists. When scientists are trying to tell people stuff, like people, if it don't go along with industry, they suppress you. And the media, before the internet, the only way anything could get out was because of the media. So if they wanted to push a certain idea, like cholesterol is bad for your heart, because all the food and drug companies are advertising, they're not going to let the scientists on who are saying that that's not true. You need as much cholesterol as possible. But you'll never see it. All right? So a lot of things get suppressed. This is a book against compulsory vaccination, okay? This is actually written by someone from Nation of Islam, Kevin A. Muhammad. I think he is a scientist, actually. But this is about HPV, okay? Why HPV vaccines are dangerous for the lives of girls, young women, and everyone else, okay? There's another book about the HPV vaccine I have that's like a huge thick page. I think it's written by two attorneys, or a scientist and an attorney, because the HPV vaccine has caused so many problems. There's this book that I posted on my page, The Body Scientist. This is the COVID vaccine and the silencing of our doctors and scientists, okay? Now, this book is really important, okay? This was talking about, there's never been such censorship in science as there was around COVID. So even right now, when the Democrats complain about the Republicans being censoring, which they are, the Democrats were extremely censoring during COVID. You couldn't say anything. This video probably would get deleted. But this book is clearly going through that with some scientists, okay? And talking about stuff, okay? The COVID vaccine and the silencing of America's doctors and scientists, okay? then vaccine nation, okay? Poisoning the population one shot at a time. All right? And this book even has different things. Okay, so this book reveals statistical evidence that vaccines never actually eradicated infectious disease, including polio. Somebody asked me if I believe that Dr. Sebi was a fraud. Yes, absolutely. I've done videos talking about that on my page, The Body Scientist. Absolutely a fraud. Okay, so this book reveals that statistical evidence that vaccines never actually eradicated infectious disease, including polio, how childhood vaccines, flu shots, and other kinds of inoculations systematically destroy the immune system, the body's immune system. The massive increase of allergies, eczema, arthritis, asthma, autism, acid reflux, cancer, diabetes, infant and childhood diabetes, kidney disease, miscarriages, and many neurological and autoimmune diseases, and sudden infant death syndrome, SIDS, are largely due to vaccines, okay? Why vaccinated children have 120% more asthma, 317% more ADHD, 185% more neurologic disorders, and 146% more autism than those not vaccinated. The shocking fact that most outbreaks of infectious diseases occur largely among those who are fully vaccinated, and vaccines lack long-term safety and testing, and most vaccine side effects are never reported in order to protect vaccine makers from liability suits. Okay? So that's what this book shows. And all of this is true. Okay? People have no idea how corrupt it is. And it's crazy to me how much people trust the pharmaceutical industry. And I'm telling you, I have a background in both nutrition and pharmacological sciences to the degree of medical cannabis science, but graduating from University of Maryland School of Pharmacy, where my professors were all pharmacists, and it's chemistry, okay? So, again, I did not vote for Donald Trump. There are things that he's doing that I do agree with, things that I don't necessarily, but the things that I don't agree with, like him trying to erase history, and all of that, I feel like is also a part of a necessary reset, because I feel like too many black people got comfortable thinking that there wasn't still work to do. You know, just being, you know, my grandmother, who was born in 1921, she really raised us to understand, like, to carry yourself a certain way. Okay, in general, but especially around white people. Not be acting like a ghetto, loud mouth, ignorant fool. Okay? And I see that with Caribbean populations, that, you know, like Haitians, for example, like at least with first generations, you know, at least a lot of times they have that same thing of like, we're really going to carry ourselves well. We're going to be fresh. We're going to be clean. We're going to be stylish. We're going to be intelligent. We're going to speak well, because people are already thinking of us lower than, because we come from Haiti. People are already thinking of us. So it's like, I think a lot of black people in the world can be that way, okay? Especially when but then I feel like in America, there was backlash, and there were some black Americans who were like, well, I don't care what white people think. Why do I need to act a certain way to impress them? And I'll speak Ebonics if I want, right? To me, us speaking Ebonics is for us. That's not something I would do on a podium. And so that's the thing with me with, somebody said, if it were not for vaccines, the world population would have been devastated by infectious diseases. Don't believe that the Chinese don't get vaccinated. That's totally not true at all. Okay. So like I said, I just gave a bunch of sources for people to look at. If you actually want to do research, because a lot of people speak on stuff and they have not done the research, and their research might have consisted on listening to people who all have the same opinion, saying the same thing. They haven't dug into the qualified scientists, okay, and doctors who are saying no. There's another book that I meant to bring, that's by Thomas Cohen, and it's about how vaccines, okay, childhood vaccines, are increasing autoimmune diseases. How it can increase autoimmune diseases? And think about it. Everything's an epidemic now. Autoimmune diseases are an epidemic. Cancers are an epidemic. And since allergies, asthma, all these things, and since COVID, there's been so many excess deaths. So many people having heart issues, and terrible cancers, okay? There's been a lot of terrible cancers that they're seeing in younger and younger people that nobody ever saw before. Look at what's his name? Deion Sanders. Okay, there were some doctors who were actually talking about Deion Sanders and how he was so gun ho for the vaccine, but there's so much that shows that it's been causing blood. I mean, there's so much evidence in studies that show that it's caused blood clotting problems, and he had serious blood clotting issues after that. I think he probably already had a blood clotting issue, and that just exacerbated it. Then he has the worst cancer that anybody ever had in their bladder, had a surgery that nobody knew was possible. And that's what these doctors are saying. They're seeing all these terrible cancers, very aggressive, most aggressive forms of cancers in people ages they never saw before since the COVID vaccine, okay? And so people who are making, people who are Democrats, a lot of them just want to make fun of Robert Kennedy. Oh, he talks like that, and they're not even listening to what he's saying. I'm like, are you listening to what he's saying? I know it's hard to listen to him. I really feel like he should write down what he's saying and let AI speak for him or something, because it's hard to listen to. But if you actually listen to what he's saying, everything he's saying makes sense. It is cited. It's backed up. Now, the media likes to come and try to twist it around and, But no, I'm a science person. I listen to the specifics of stuff. I go dig for the research, go analyze it. And he's always citing things. He's on point. How can you be mad that the man wants to get chemicals and poisons out of the food? Nobody has ever challenged these food companies and pharmaceutical companies in this way. And it actually pretty much shocks me, because these companies give so much to politicians, and we all know Trump cares so much about money, that I'm really surprised that, and Trump never seemed to me like he cared about health like that. So I'm really surprised he even put Robert F. Kennedy Jr. there to go after these companies in that way. Like, that's actually kind of shocking to me, because Trump to me always seemed like if money's involved, he's about it. So he really could have been the total opposite. And I honestly think that he's doing a good job with it. And when people were making fun of him because he couldn't say acetaminophen, like, a lot of people, I can say it some days I can't. Acetaminophen, like, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people can't say that word unless you're like in that world. Like, it's okay, so what? But when people are, everybody has autistic kids, okay? Autism, and I'm going to do, again, more videos on this on my page, The Body Scientist 81. But it's way too common. And I myself have met plenty of people who have had multiple kids, and maybe they vaccinated the first two. The first two were autistic, have all these issues. Then maybe they had one or two more, did not vaccinate them, and those kids are fine. Okay? The amount of, and then when you have people who are older, like, oh, that's ridiculous. Older people, you weren't taking 100 freaking shots, 75 shots, in your childhood. You weren't taking vaccines for chicken pox, and getting chicken pox actually strengthens your immune system against other illnesses and heart disease and other things in the future. And there are studies that were shown, that were done, and this is what Aaron Siri, I'll post this conversation below, when he was talking to Congress. Aaron Siri was talking about how there were studies where they took vaccinated and unvaccinated kids, and when they compared how often they got sick or were hospitalized for stuff, the vaccinated kids were sick and hospitalized more. Even when they took out the healthiest of the unvaccinated out the study, the most unhealthy of the unvaccinated were still healthier than the vaccinated kids, okay? Someone said there's a lot of autism happening with black children. There's a lot of autism happening with everybody's children. Everybody's acting like it's normal. Everybody's trans. Everybody has autism. Everybody gets offended when we talk about what the hell's wrong, because this is not normal. And then you have people like getting upset, oh, Tylenol and pregnancy. Like, again, I'm going to do more videos on that on the body. People don't want to believe it's this. They don't want to believe it's that. So you just think autism came out of nowhere? Why would Robert F. Kennedy Jr. just want to say that? Like, is he going to get paid because he's saying that? If anything, you lose money by saying these things. So what would be his motivation? Like, to just be coming after these companies? So I suggest that people actually, like, do some actual research, okay? Check out some of these books that I gave you. I think that there's a lot of people, then he did the H-1B1 visas or whatever for the people who are coming over here working, and he's saying it's $100,000 a year. I think that's good, because Those are supposed to be for companies who could not find qualified Americans, and you can go get somebody from overseas, but they were abusing that. And there's lots of qualified Americans who could do that work. So this whole narrative of Americans aren't smart, Americans aren't lazy, we don't have Americans that could do that work, or to even act like immigrants are only taking field jobs or something. And when people talk about that, it really just sounds like you guys just want slaves, right? You want people who are going to work for nothing in terrible conditions, and Americans aren't doing that. But it's not just that. It's many fields where, including Hollywood and acting, where you have British African actors playing Black American roles, taking roles from Black American actors. You have it in science. You have it in medicine. You have it in technology. Now, the weird thing is that Trump defunding so many of these universities, it's like, okay, well, how are you going to keep the people, like, if you want them to just hire Americans, you need to have good universities so you can't be defunding universities. So that's hypocritical, okay? Hypocritical. But yeah, I mean, there's probably other things that I want to say. And like I said, I'm not MAGA, okay? I can't even say I'm a Trump supporter because I did not vote for him either time. And I do think he has lowered the bar very low in a lot of ways. But I don't disagree with everything that he's doing. And I look at things from a lot of different angles. Some things, even if it's so-called inhumane, might be a necessary part of it. Because again, what's happening with people being shipped to wherever, it's making people say, I'm not coming here. If they were going to be light on you like they have been being light on people, letting people be in this country for years committing crimes. You know how many people have died in America because of illegal immigrants driving crazy? Because I travel a lot. Every time I leave America and I'm in the Caribbean or South America or in Africa, people drive like they don't have no type of driving rules in those countries at all. Okay? And people do a lot of dangerous, reckless shit. So then they come over to America with that. Because people don't believe in assimilating in America. Everybody thinks that when they come from whatever country they came from, they can keep living here like they were living in their country. But when we go to their country, they expect us to assimilate and not be acting like just because you do that in America, that's against our culture here. We have to switch up. Like when I'm in other countries, I notice that people don't walk down the street with headphones on talking, right? Like we do here. So when I've been in those countries, I stopped doing it because I want to blend in. So I don't want to be looking crazy with headphones walking down the street talking. But that's not a thing that they do there. It's just not a part of the culture, so it looks weird. So I'm not going to do it. I almost feel like I'm being disrespectful. But when people come to America and they see that we don't ride mopeds on the sidewalk, they don't care. They go on the sidewalk and ride their mopeds. Okay? So there, to me, isn't that respect of American culture and how we do things and people are over here. And so now, you know, and then there was a lot of taunting of immigrant groups towards Black Americans, a lot of discrimination. To me, it's Black Americans against everybody because we helped, you know, these immigrant groups come over here and then they spit on us. You know, a lot of them, you know, was talking about us, looking down on us, not knowing that the only reason why they were here and had a comfortable life was because of us. So now that that's getting taken away, necessary reset. And I don't feel like it's my job to fight. I made a video. I'm not fighting for any immigrants. And that doesn't mean that I'm anti-immigrant. I have a lot of friends and people I know who parents are immigrants. But I'm just saying that's not my fight. Because I know good and well, if I was in their country, they would not be fighting for me. I know good and well if I was in their country, overstaying visas, committing crimes, doing this, whatever my sob story is, people will look at me as, oh, you're an obnoxious American, you know. And we got problems over here, too. Shit's not all rosy. Everybody in America is not rich and living a nice life. There's a lot of people in America who are also living in war zones. And there's nowhere for them to run. There's no one that's going to help them. There's no one that cares. We couldn't go to another country and beg for money in the street. People come to America from other countries and be begging in the street. You know what I'm saying? Now you taking stuff away from the homeless. So I'm just saying, like, there needs to be more respect on that level. So I just feel like on a multitude of levels, it's like a necessary reset, although as painful as it might be and as destructive as it will be, because we haven't even gotten through the first year yet. But at the same time, I can't say that he's always wrong or that I disagree with everything he's doing. And RFK Jr., to me, I agree with all the stuff that he's doing. I made a video about him before, my page, The Body Scientist 81. I'm going to make some more. But in the meantime, so definitely follow me there for me to get more in depth. And I will get more in depth on this hearing. Definitely check out some of these books that I gave you, okay? People really need to read more. And when it comes to science, okay, because most people don't have a science background. You don't know how science works. You don't know how corrupt it is. People be trusting the FDA, the pharmaceutical companies so much. Sometimes people just need to be quiet, because in science, you didn't take any chemistry classes or microbiology. You don't read scientific studies. But at some point, you have to be quiet, okay? Because as a science student, you're quiet for years while you're learning all this hard science before you can even put it together and think straight. So you can check out these books that I recommended, okay? Because they're written by qualified people, and they're digging through that, and they're explaining it to you in a way that you can understand, okay? So I think I've said what I gotta say for this video. Yeah, make sure that if you're on Instagram, make sure you follow me on YouTube at The Renaissance Amazon. And if you're on YouTube, make sure you follow me on Instagram at _Renaissance_Amazon. Okay? And thank you guys for listening. If you feel free to share your opinions. Can I share the books again? No. It's too many of them. Like, if you go back and listen, I went through each of them, so you'll get to it if you go back and listen. But it's just too much to go through. Maybe I could do it quickly, but I'll try to do it really quickly, okay? Because before I read more things about it, but I'll just quickly go through it. So, Vaccine Nation, Poisoning the Population, One Shot at a Time. It's written by Andreas Mortiz. Yes, you came late. It's okay. I'll go through them again real quick. And if you go back and listen, I talk about the authors and and all that. This one I didn't show before. This was Vaccines and Are They Really Safe and Effective? Okay. And this has forwards by medical doctors. Okay. That's a short, simple one. Then I have this one, the COVID-19 vaccine and the silencing of doctors and scientists. Against compulsory vaccination, okay? Why HPV vaccines are dangerous to the lives of girls, young women, and everyone else. This is by Kevin A. Muhammad. Got jabbed. How the vaccine industry, medical establishment, and the government stick it to you and your family. Now, by Brett Wilcox. Now, hopefully this video won't get taken off of YouTube, because that's what was happening during COVID. I couldn't even tell you these things because they just delete it for medical misinformation, and it's not. Got this book, Vaccine Epidemic, okay? How corporate greed, biased science, and coercive government threaten our human rights, our health, and our children, okay? Food Politics, okay? Really important book. Again, if you go back, I do talk about these books and why I'm recommending them. But Food Politics, how the food industry influences nutrition and health by Marion Nestle. Very important book. And then I think it's the last one, which is COVID-19 Remedies, a Frontline Doctor's View. This is written by a Nigerian doctor, Dr. Caxton Opere. Yeah. So I think I've said what I'm going to say in this video. If you like it, share it, follow me everywhere. If you came late, you can go back and listen to the beginning because there's a lot of things that I said. And if there's anything that I probably did not say that I'll remember later, it'll be another video. But make sure you follow me in the Body Scientist 81 as well, because I'm going to go more in depth with some of the scientific things that I was talking about. And I have videos already that I've made in depth talking about vaccine science, immunity, corruption in science, all of that on my page, The Body Scientist 81. And I will post them below on my YouTube channel. Okay, so I hope you guys have a great day. Take care. And actually listen to, it was, I'm going to post this on YouTube, this hearing that's happening with Congress with these scientists that are talking about the corruption in science and vaccines. I suggest you, and I'll post it below on YouTube, I suggest you actually listen to it, okay? And check out at least a couple of these books, okay? And then see if you still believe these people telling you that you need all this poison that's not poisoning you, And not just causing autism, but cancers, autoimmune diseases, okay? All types of issues. And all that's an epidemic. And this is the sickest group of kids that have been on the planet since we've been on this planet, okay? So something's up. All right, people. Have a great day, and I'll talk to you later. Bye.